I find this particular class being more wide open, and I feel like it's more nebulous in my mind, based on just we know that Tet McMillan is probably drawing live to be the first actual wide receiver, post Travis Hunter taken, and then we got an idea that teams will value Matthew Golden speed because historically the NFL showed us that they value that type of player, and then we might not see another round one wide receiver. Like we can make the case that like Burden and Egbuka could get into the first round, but if they end up going in the high round 2 range, I don't think anyone would really blink. So I'm kind of using the NFL more this year than I have in years past. For giving us a larger signal of saying like what this team values, and it's not necessarily just the draft capital. It's where they go in certain spots I believe in, and certain systems that I believe are excelling in today's current defensive meta. So those things matter. And these class has such wide range of archetypes. Like what if a team values a slot more this year? Than an X receiver and things like that. So this draft's definitely more wide open, I think, than previous years, just because we don't have a lot of blue chip guys. Who here outside of Tet McMillan do you believe has a probability of giving you a wide receiver 1 season? Who are you betting on?
I think that's the problem with the class for sure, is that the higher end, potential higher end wide receivers from a draft capital perspective, a Golden, a Burden, an Egbuka, we don't even necessarily feel great about their ceiling from a fantasy perspective until maybe you get into the true X archetype of a Jaden Higgins or something. And that's where you start to feel a little bit more confident about that true ceiling. And that really, at the end of the day, was a tiebreaker for me in putting Tet wide receiver 1 in rankings is just that, I think there are some red flags to his profile. I don't think there's any wide receiver in this class that is nearly as good as a Neighbors or even Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. I think there's plenty of red flags across the board, but at least you can envision that ceiling with McMillan. The other guys, like you mentioned, it's tough to really see that. And you have to kind of go into that day 2 group to see, some of these other X archetypes that we typically see having that top 6, top 7 ceiling in fantasy.
The supermodel does have Tet number 1, but it's like what Scott talked about with Travis Hunter. It's so difficult. How do you even handle Travis Hunter? I'm actually interested in how you guys did, because we know he's going to be a top 3 pick, but at the same time, we don't know how much he's going to play on offense. Right. And all the things that Scott said, how do you truly evaluate his profile, knowing that he was playing defense, he's in defensive meetings, he's probably tired, all these things that are going on with him. So the way I ultimately handled it, I said, okay, let's look at players that had a similar production score based on the supermodel rating, as well as similar film scores. So in my model, I use Lance Zierlein scores. They go back a long way, so I can actually test them, see that they actually do correlate to future production. And so once I did that, that essentially said, okay, he's going pick 3, but really it would probably be valued as between picks 12 and 14. If we were just looking at him as a wide receiver. But honestly, that's me best guessing it. Because if say the Browns take him and they immediately say they're going to play him full time at wide receiver, he will be the wide receiver 1, in my model post draft, because now we're going to say, okay, he's pick 3 and we know he's going to play wide receiver all the time. Now, I don't know that we'll even have a team declare that to us after they take him. So I don't know that we'll know that for sure. But I do have Tet McMillan number 1 right now, because Travis Hunter, I am discounting that draft capital sum in the model just to account for the fact that he's such a unique prospect and I don't know where he's going to play. But I agree with you guys, looking at the model, the supermodel hit rates, 30% of the time, guys that have graded out in McMillan's range have gone on to be wide receiver 1s. 80% of the time they've been wide receiver 2s. So I also feel like he's a pretty safe bet, right? I feel like you're probably getting a wide receiver 2, maybe mid-range wide receiver 2 if you take Tet McMillan, but you at least still have a chance of getting that high-end wide receiver 1 upside. I think, Travis Hunter, theoretically, if I could just give him a true draft capital grade and we knew everything, his ceiling would probably grade out higher. It would grade out higher than Tet McMillan.
Literally, sky is the limit for this guy who, like I said, spent the bulk of his practice time with the DBs, was perpetually gassed, playing 60 snaps per game on defense. He also built his body for cardio. And so what happens when he focuses full time on one position? This is one of my favorite players to ever come out. I think he's coming off of probably the greatest college football season of all time. He won the Heisman, he won the Biletnikoff for best wide receiver, and the Bednarik for best defensive player. He was basically the best and second best players in college football last year. It's just like so insane. And the numbers were really good to me. Like honestly, like you can quibble with maybe the yards per route run, but if you personnel adjust it, it was elite marks because there were frequently 4 or 5 wide receivers on the field. You can adjust it also for, it's a very screen heavy offense and you didn't get a lot of screens, which makes sense. You want to give them a little bit of a breather, but yeah, I love him. It really just entirely comes down to what a team tells us they're planning on doing with him. I'm actually optimistic. I think it makes a little more sense for him to be wide receiver full time. And I also think there's like legitimately a chance he could just be the NFL's new Shohei Ohtani.